Welcome to Business Talk with Meghan, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of business success and reveals the strategies, insights, and stories that drive these professionals to thrive in the ever-evolving world of business. Whether you're an established entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply fascinated by the world of commerce, this podcast is your front row seat to learn from the best. Each episode, Meghan will bring you engaging interviews with professionals from diverse industries who will share their triumphs, lessons learned, and the insights they've gained along the way. Anurita, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Everyone, I'm here today with my friend and colleague, Anuita Varma. She is a business attorney specializing in helping business owners and entrepreneurs with any employment law issues. And she happens to work for one of the largest California employment attorney firms, Fisher and Phillips, right, Anurita?
Correct. Yeah, we're a national firm with, I think, about 38 offices now. We just opened one in Mexico, so it's one of the top and most prominent labor and employment firms in the country.
And I believe the largest one is here in Orange County, correct? Your largest office?
Yeah, our largest office is in Irvine, and that's where I currently work.
Amazing. So today I just wanted to talk about basically how you help protect and defend business owners and entrepreneurs. Before you answer that, just want to mention the reason why I bring this up is because a lot of people who are business owners don't necessarily realize that starting their own business is also going to require them to have a business attorney to help them with California employment law if they have employees. So I'd like to just jump into the conversation and discuss how you help defend and protect these owners of businesses.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, on this podcast. I'm excited to talk about, everything we're talking about today. So in terms of protecting or defending business owners, I think there's many different ways to do that. For me, it ends up being a case-by-case approach because what I like to do is tailor my advice and counsel to the particular needs of, that client's business. However, something that I make sure to do, and I think every attorney working with a business should do, is to take the time to really learn that client's business. Only then will you be able to sufficiently solve their legal problems or even prevent those problems from happening in the first place. And that's because you understand their business. So I think it's really important to take the time to learn, for example, their business model, what different types of employees they have, how those employees are hired, what policies do they have, what policies are missing that they should have. What types of issues, including legal issues, are common to the particular industry that particular client is in. What recent changes in the law affect that client's business? What are the business's short-term and long-term goals? And that list can go on and on, but really I'd like to emphasize that the first step in being able to protect or defend a business is for an attorney to really know the business. And you have to think about it from the client's perspective too, right? Why would they trust an attorney with something as important as their business that they put, all of their earnings and all of their time into if the attorney doesn't know anything about it? So it's important to gain the client's trust and show some interest in their business before trying to protect or defend them. Once you learn what you need to learn about the business, then you tailor your approach to defending and protecting the business. And that's basically my approach when working with my clients.
I love it. So that kind of was my first taste of how important having an employment law attorney helping a business owner is when I was working with a medical device startup company, and we were hiring sales reps as W-2 employees, and they basically were like not performing. And so we wanted to say, okay, well, you're not performing. We have to move on. And a lot of the times you run into some hurdles with the employment laws in California. So it's so important if you're trying to run a business with employees to have an attorney that can help you out in those situations.
Yeah, and not just, when you're starting the business, but really throughout each step of the way, because California laws are constantly changing. So before making any big decision, a business owner or his HR team or whoever should really consult with an attorney.
So that kind of brings me to my next question. What types of policies and procedures should business owners be aware of, in your opinion?
Well, I'll give my opinion from, the perspective of an employment attorney.
Okay.
And I would say that there are several policies and procedures that, business owners should implement and follow. I base this response on the types of issues that frequently and consistently come up in litigation, at least that I've seen. So first, I would advise business owners to either have a strong HR team, or at the very least, have an attorney that they can periodically go to that will create, review, or update the important policies. Business owners typically don't have the time to constantly monitor the legal issues, and so they need to be able to rely on someone else to do that for them and rely on someone to actually do it right. And there are several policies to consider. For example, is there an employee handbook, and what policies are in those handbooks? Is there an arbitration agreement in place? Depending on the type of employees that are hired, does the company have legally compliant, meal and rest break policies? Did it have solid anti-harassment or anti-discrimination policies in place? And if all those policies are in place, are they up to date with the frequently changing law? Because if they're not, that makes it really easy for someone at some point to slap the business with a lawsuit. So in terms of getting the important policies and procedures in place, I would, again, advise business owners to invest in a team, whether it's an HR person or HR team or an outside attorney, which the HR person would be likely contacting anyway, to make sure that those policies are more or less bulletproof. So I would just say don't wait for the lawsuit to be filed. Preventative care is key here. I would say that business owners should also know that just having these legally compliant policies in writing is really not enough. You really need to make sure that your company is actually following those policies in practice. So another thing that business owners should do is implement a system where, for example, employees can complain if they feel that the policies and procedures are not being followed, and maybe also a system where, you have the employees attest that the policies are being followed or that they understand the policies and, for example, they understand that they are provided with or entitled to the compliant meal and rest breaks. Overall, I would say that, business owners should always be thinking one step ahead and have a defense ready in response to, a claim down the road that their policies are not being followed. I actually recently defended a client in a situation where the client was sued for claims such as, failure to provide meal and rest breaks to its non-exempt employees. And as you know, Meghan, non-exempt employees are protected by California's wage and hour laws and are entitled to things like meal and rest breaks and overtime. But in this situation, my firm had actually previously helped set up this client's policies, including the meal and rest break policies and employee attestations, in such a way that when this lawsuit came up, I showed those policies and the employee attestations to the plaintiff's counsel. They ended up backing off and acknowledging the very, very low value of this case. Without getting into much more detail, that's just an example of how doing things correctly from the start can really set the tone of a lawsuit if one is filed, and can really diminish the value of a case. On the other hand, I've also had situations where some clients will come to me for help after they've used, LegalZoom or something other than a knowledgeable attorney to set up their policies and procedures, and it just ends up being very, very expensive to go back and fix all those problems that really shouldn't have been there in the first place.
I think I have personal experience with this, and I get asked all the time if they can use LegalZoom to set up their healthcare directive or their business LLC, and they think, oh, let's just ask a lawyer and see if they think LegalZoom's okay. And I'm like, well, you get what you pay for. I'm sure it could be okay, but it's not customized to any of your unique or personal situations. And if you run into problems, it could be drastic. So
exactly,
it kind of goes to like people that, estate planning with their families. They're like, oh, like I've built all this wealth and have a house and kids and everything, and then suddenly the husband or wife dies and they didn't have any planning done, and they expect it to, some of these legal documents to take care of everything, and it just doesn't do it. So planning ahead in terms of your business and in terms of estate planning is, important. So I totally understand what you're saying. What's one thing you wish business owners should do when they're looking for the right attorney?
Well, I would say that business owners should, make sure they find the right attorney that is actually the right fit for them and their business. And, I know that sounds like common sense, but you'd be surprised at how many times, a client has told me that their previous attorney didn't do this or that right, but for whatever reason, they've had an attorney for years and years. And again, from the business owner's perspective, they likely have put a good amount of their life savings in their business, or at the very least have devoted a significant amount of time to the business. So that business owner really shouldn't just, trust just anyone with their business. And even from the attorney's perspective, it's equally important to make sure that, the client that you are representing is a good fit. I think that attorneys should make sure that they are not taking clients just for the sake of taking clients. An attorney's role, in my opinion, is to help solve and help prevent legal issues, and it's really hard to fulfill that role if the relationship isn't a good fit. So I would just say that, when finding the right attorney, don't just jump into a situation with just anyone. Make sure it's a good fit, because even severing that relationship could end up being difficult or costly.
I'm not sure if this is like off base or not, but when a business hires an employment attorney such as yourself to come in and either A, defend them against problems, or B, preventatively help them fix their planning or procedures to prevent future problems, are you kind of acting like outside counsel? Are you working with their legal department? They have an internal legal department. Is that the right terminology to use, or how would you describe that situation?
Yes to both. It depends on the business, right? Sometimes it's a small business that's, maybe has limited funds. They don't have a big HR team. So I'm acting as their outside counsel and their go-to person for pretty much any legal issue they have, sometimes also, business issues. And then I have other clients that have established in-house counsel that, and when you're in-house, a lot of times you're wearing different hats. You're wearing legal, you're dealing with other, aspects of the business, everyday, happenings in the business. So the in-house counsel will typically retain outside counsel, such as myself or someone else from my firm, to assist with litigation or whatever legal issues they have. So yes, I would say the terminology used is correct.
Okay, I was just curious how that works, and I guess it probably varies the cost of having someone like you in-house versus outside the counsel. So interesting.
Yeah, and one more thing about that is, sometimes, especially with litigation, you're going to want to hire outside counsel, because a firm such as mine will have the resources and the expertise to really handle any labor and employment issue that the company may have. Whereas, the in-house counsel attorney that business has, they have so much on their plate anyway, and there's probably no way that they can handle a big litigation matter or something that large in themselves.
So I guess my next question would be what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs or individuals looking to start their own business?
For folks looking to start their own business, again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about before. Really just make sure the business is properly set up from the start. I'm talking about the formation documents, partnership agreements, operating agreements, articles, all those policies and procedures. Just all of that needs to be carefully drafted and reviewed by a trusted and experienced attorney. So my advice is invest in that from the start. Otherwise, you'll end up spending 5 times the amount going back to fix any problems.
I've been a part of a lot of startup businesses, and I can attest that that is very important. And the way you want to set up a good foundation and make sure you're getting the right advisors in place to advise you will save you a lot of headaches down the road. What are your thoughts on the future of your industry and the emerging trends that you believe will have a significant impact in employment law here in California and across the country?
Well, in regards to the future of my industry, the industry that I'm in, I'll start by saying that employment lawyers will always be, at least in my opinion, an essential component for businesses. And, even more important in a state like California, which has laws that are very, very employee-friendly, and the laws seem to get more and more employee-friendly as the years go by. The consequence of that, of course, is that we are seeing many more lawsuits being filed. So businesses need to be extra careful and actually have to think several steps ahead before making certain employment decisions. One situation that I wanted to mention that I see very frequently is where a business goes ahead and terminates an employee without first making sure that they have their ducks in a row and have anticipated their defense. So I'm actually very pleased and very happy when a client gives me a call before they make a decision like that, so that I can walk them through the process in a way that will minimize any potential liability. Mm-hmm. Because as you know, there's no control over whether a lawsuit or a claim is ultimately filed, but I think there is a lot of control over the actions that a business can take to minimize potential liability in case a lawsuit is filed. So in terms of the future of my industry, I think, employment lawyers will always be, a key component to, a business thriving and staying out of trouble. I think you also asked about emerging trends that have a significant impact. Okay, so I'll briefly touch on one trend that I think is relevant across many different industries, and that's artificial intelligence. So it's pretty amazing what artificial intelligence has been able to do for the legal industry. And specifically in regards to litigation, it's been able to do things like search legal authority and actually prepare legal briefs. And to me, that sounds amazing, and it is amazing because it has the potential to make everything much more efficient and less time-consuming, which is great from the client or business owner's perspective. But I will say this. I think that attorneys should be extremely careful in using artificial intelligence and really should only use it in limited circumstances. It's really no replacement for an actual attorney. We all saw what happened recently in Manhattan, where an attorney used artificial intelligence and he ended up filing in federal court a brief that cited to 6 cases which actually do not exist. So do I think the attorney was wrong in exploring artificial intelligence in the first place? No, I don't. But I think he was wrong in failing to take the time to go back and to check to see if those cases exist. And he was, of course, wrong for assuming that artificial intelligence is 100% trustworthy for something as important as a legal brief that you're presenting to a court. So, I think attorneys should use artificial intelligence as a first step, but only as a first step. For example, use it to get a list of cases relevant to a legal issue for a brief that you're drafting, for example, but you better make sure you go back and read and confirm that those cases say what they need to say and also that they actually exist. There's a reason why artificial intelligence includes the word artificial.
Correct. I like that. Good point. Anurita, you just see it everywhere and everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's going to replace human jobs and human lawyers, but I agree with you. I don't think so. If it can make us more efficient, I think that's great and do our jobs faster, but I agree. I think business owners will still need advisors and attorneys to explain to them in the employment law to make sure they're not doing anything, wrong. And sometimes the law is hard to understand and you need lawyers to explain it in simplified terms. So I don't know if AI can do that, but I still think they're gonna need lawyers, even though everybody's, freaking out about the AI stuff, and you see it everywhere all of a sudden for whatever reason they decided to start marketing AI the past 3 months.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's cool when it can, when AI can, what you can do with like pictures and stuff, but when it comes to actual legal work, it's really no replacement for an attorney.
Now, how often do you actually do like depositions and go to court and also help, do a lot of preemptive work, if I'm saying that correctly, for business owners? What's your favorite part about your job? Or do you like all 3 parts?
I like all 3 parts, but I will say that my favorite thing to do as an attorney is to take depositions. And for me, it's, a time where the attorney can really be creative and, a deposition, what you're trying to do is get the other side to say something that is against their interest, right? So, the way to do that, of course, is to be creative in your questioning, to really know the case really well, know your defenses really well, know any weaknesses in your defenses. And of course, even if you know all of that, you can show up for the deposition and you still don't have too much of an idea of what you're getting into because, you never know if the other side is going to be really prepared or if the attorney is going to object a lot. For me, it's just fun. It's a way to be creative. It's a way to, think on the spot and come up with questions or, creative arguments right on the spot, which I think is, something fun to do. And I've taken probably over 200 depositions, defended many, many depositions. And so that's my favorite thing to do. And later this month, I'm doing a deposition workshop for younger and, new attorneys just to get them to understand how depositions work and, tips and tricks for getting the most successful deposition that you can and getting the admissions you need. So I think it's really important to build those skills early on.
I love that. I bet it's going to be well attended. I like that. Is there do you do any programs for or workshops for business owners to come learn about what your law firm does and your services?
Yeah, my firm is actually involved in many different organizations, but I think one thing that we are more than happy to do and that we are doing is, if there's a business that is interested in learning about, something as general as, okay, what laws are going to be in effect in 2024? What are the labor employment laws that are changing? We are more than happy to set up a workshop or go to the client's, place of business and speak with the relevant people there and put on a presentation. So that's absolutely something that we do. And I think that's a great way, even meet and greet to get to know us and for us to get to know the potential client and, of course, for the potential client to learn what laws they need to really focus on.
Okay, so this might also be another random question, but I'm always curious. What are those signages that are in everybody's offices, or in the meal room, or I don't know, where there's a refrigerator that they have to post it that is this blah 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 blah. Is that California labor and employment law?
Yeah, it can be. It could be labor employment. It could be OSHA. What I've seen clients do, which I think is a smart thing to do, especially when you have a lot of employees with, say they have different schedules. And I'm talking about the non-exempt folks here. So what they'll do is they'll have, a policy posted up in the break room or, like you said, on the refrigerator or just, around the office, saying, here's the California meal and rest break policies. Here's when you need to take your, first meal break. Here's how long it has to be. Here's when you take your second meal break. Here's when you need to take your first rest break. Here's how long it needs to be. So I think there's many different policies, but I'll just talk about those. I think that's really important to have because, again, when a lawsuit is filed, and in this example, I'm using the, example where the claim is filed that the employees say, oh, we never got our meal and rest breaks, and even though we were entitled to those, then the employer can point to, well, wait a second, we have these policies posted everywhere in the company, we train you guys on this, and it just makes it easier, again, to defend against those claims. And unfortunately, with the volume of lawsuits that are being filed, employers need to take these extra steps, like posting these policies around the place, just so that they have a good defense if and when someone tries to claim that those policies weren't in place or that they didn't know about them.
Yeah, I was just curious. So I feel like all that type of red tape and the bureaucracy is really intimidating for people that would like to start their own businesses or have their businesses, and they get frustrated with not knowing all the employment law and like the amount of time it takes to keep up with it. So this has been great talking to you, because I feel that all business owners should know that there are dedicated attorneys out there that can help them navigate this, situation, which is part of doing business, and that they shouldn't be deterred if they are, creative and entrepreneurs and want to have, their own businesses and not necessarily work for somebody else.
Absolutely, and I could talk about this for many more hours, because I really enjoy what I do, and again, one of the best feelings is having a client that has everything set up in a compliant way and just getting rid of a lawsuit that comes in and basically saying, hey, my client is compliant with all the policies and procedures. There's no merit to this case. Go away. That's one of the best feelings to have. It keeps the clients happy, and so thank you for having me on here, and I appreciate our discussion, and I'm happy to offer any additional thoughts in a different podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here, Anurita, and sharing all that information, and we'll do it again too.
Perfect. Thank you.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Business Talk podcast and leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us grow and improve. Thank you for joining us today. This has been another episode of Business Talk with Meghan.